Call this meeting of the Water Board to order. First item is approval of minutes of November 22nd.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on November 22nd, 2022.
I'll second it.
Motion second, we approve the minutes from November 22nd. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Purchase orders. You got a few.
Well, we have a total 15 purchase orders listed. The first one is to Utility Supply. It's for pit lids. This was a confirming order. We ran out. We contacted them. They actually had them. We already had some on order, but they were coming from another vendor and they weren't in yet. But we did contact this vendor. He had some in stock, so we got them. And so we had to do that confirming. Weir's repairs to truck number 9. This is our big dump truck. There were electrical issues with the dump bed and headlights. So this is confirming for $692.80. The next is to Westside Tractor. This is for mini excavator. When we talked about the lead and copper project, that included acquiring mini excavator trailer. They have one coming towards the end of January, and so we're on the list to get it. So this purchase order will not be, there will be no charges against it until 2023 for $74,669.23. The next is to Westside Tractor. This is a trailer for that excavator for $14,500. Again, this would not be received until after the first of the year when we get the excavator.
Where is Westside Tractor?
It's over in South Bend.
Are we renting this equipment or
No, this is
we're
purchase.
buying it?
Yeah. We generally don't do rental, we do purchase. The next is to Ferguson for repair clamps for stock for $4,338.13. The next is to JB Detail. This is for the lights, radio, and inverter for truck 20. That's the crew truck we bought back in November. We acquired that truck. And that's also the vehicle that we're going to be using for lead service line replacement. This equipment install is for $6,229.83. Number 7 is to McCann backhoe cutting edge for $749.95. The next is to Spring Lake Sales running boards, floor liners, and window visors for that same truck 20 for $1,490. Basically, when you get these trucks, when they're on the lot, they're pretty basic. They don't have some of the details and things that we need, so then we have to add them later.
Okay.
The next item, number 9, is to Midwest Meter for 1-inch meters in stock for $1,424. The next one is to Action Automation inlet flow valve actuator at Paz Room Booster Station for $7,864.28. The one that was there broke. And number 11 is to McAllister. It's the ATS's automatic transfer switch controller for the Beverly Shores emergency generator for $7,461.38. And it's another device that failed on us, so we had to get a replacement. The next item is to Utility Supply for a tapping machine for $3,750. The next item is to Utility Supply yoke stops for meter pits for $1,800. The next is also to Utility Supply. This is 1-inch corporation stops. We were running out and we had an order. The order wasn't in yet from another vendor, so this vendor had them available, so we got some with a confirming order of $1,530. And then VSI Management, this is a gas-powered saw for cutting concrete pipe, etc., for $1,024.89.
Make a motion to accept the list of purchase orders dated 12/13/2022.
I'll second it.
Motion second to approve the purchase orders dated 12/13. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Claims.
Make a motion to approve the list of claims dated December 13th, 2022 as presented.
I'll second it.
There's a motion second to approve the claims dated December 13th. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Bad debt list.
I'll make a motion to approve the bad debt list for checkbookkeeping, yeah, that's it. Purposes only.
There you go.
Yes, there you go.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Yeah.
There's a motion second to approve the bad debt list dated December 13th for bookkeeping purposes only. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the business plan for 2023.
I did go through the previous year's business plan, and I found quite a few items in that business plan that were more so items that belonged in our annual report. So I pulled a few of those items out. It didn't make sense to be in this document as well. There's a lot of detail in here. I guess the first thing I'd like to go back to is at the back of your packet are folded pages with the operating forecast. So in the operating forecast, we looked at the possibility, or we looked at it, basically, we knew that our revenues aren't going to necessarily increase year to year. We had a couple of really strong years during the COVID pandemic, and my thoughts on that are we had a lot of people staying at home, and they were keeping that residential services tend not to get up into they don't use enough water to get up into the lower priced water according to our tariff. So there was a lot more revenue because people were staying home and using more water at home. And now everybody's going out and they're using it at restaurants and in businesses, and those tend to move up into that next tier where the water gets cheaper per 100 cubic feet. So that being said, we were very conservative on our revenues. These revenues, basically the revenues that we used are 0.1% below the end of year projections for 2022. So basically it took January through October's 2022 actuals and then used the 2022 business plan, added that to it to estimate what the end of year would be for 2022. So the revenues are down slightly, which per customer, we've seen a decrease in usage per customer, especially in the residential area, because people are they're replacing their faucets and their sinks and their toilets with low flow devices, and that does decrease the amount of water that we sell. And we do identify it as a risk. Fortunately, it's not a huge decrease, but it does decrease over time as properties are upgraded. And then we looked at our expenses, and we had to put a relatively healthy increase on our expenses just to ensure that we were covered with regard to the inflation we've been experiencing. Of course, a lot of our materials and equipment are coming in a little more money, a little more expensive than they've been in the past. I believe the current CPI is around 8%, and so that indicates that the things that we're buying are costing us more, obviously. One of the big ones for us is our electricity and our chlorine gas. The electricity, at the end of 2021, NIPSCO got a 10% increase. And it looks that they are in the process right now of a rate case to increase their rates again. So if they get that rate increase, we could be looking at another 10% increase, which, at the residential level is significant, because you're talking about an extra, $20-$30 or whatever your electric bill is. Our treatment plant averages about $25,000 to $30,000 a month to pump water. So 10% is quite a bit more. So
That's not gonna go into effect till next year, till 2024.
we went ahead and anticipated it just to be on the safe side. We'd rather be safe than sorry. If they don't get it, hooray. But if they do, or if they don't get as much as they've requested as well, because they can request, you can request 100% increase, and by the time everything's negotiated, it can be 5%. You just never know. Depends on how well built your rate case is. So we have those extra costs in there. We did, of course, if you go to the second page of operating expenses, we did increase our salaries based on the increases that were already provided, plus an anticipated increase for once we go through our contract negotiations, which are at the end of July is when our contract ends. So we anticipate that there's going to be some sort of increase. Don't know what that is yet. I did use the number. Like I said before, I won't use it in public because I don't want to do anything to the negotiation situation. But when the time comes for that, we will have executive session to discuss, because that is allowed under state law for contract negotiations. So we anticipated an increase across the board. We also spoke to the United Steelworkers Insurance Fund, and they anticipate a relatively small increase. I believe they said around 4% this year. But we went ahead and doubled that just in case. Because we won't know until April what the bill's going to be in May. So at this point, they anticipate it to not increase significantly, but until April comes around, we won't know for sure what the amount is.
I have a question about, I see in March and September, gross salaries spike, and so does distribution expense. Is there something happening in those months that?
Well, the spike for March and September, Chris goes through the calendar and he looks to see when payrolls will hit.
Oh, I see.
And 2 months out of the year, we have 3 payrolls in the calendar.
So that's 3 payroll, that's the reason.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that explains it.
Yeah, we don't do accruals.
It's okay.
We don't balance it out.
That makes sense.
Like private business
That
stuff.
sounds good. Okay.
So that being said, right now it shows our net income basically 100% below last year's plan because we had some net income planned and we don't have really any net income planned for this year. We're showing a negative $1,000 for operating expense versus operating revenues. That's also assuming that we apply all of our, the money that we put in normally into the improvement fund and into the tank fund and all those other pieces as well. So the big, one of the big increases that we're looking at is also in our capital side. So if you go to the second folded set, this is our 5-year capital improvement replacement program. In 2023, I have $125,000 for a comprehensive planning study. The last one was performed in 2013. It's been 10 years since the last one was performed. Obviously, a lot of things have happened in the community in the last 10 years, and we have a lot of things coming at us in the short term in the community. And really, comprehensive planning should be done at least 10 years. Some places do it more often, but for us, I think 10 years is probably good. And then basically we have some basic projects listed through here, some things that need to be replaced, some equipment that is getting on in its life and getting close to its end of life, and is starting to nickel and dime us on repairs. So it makes sense to upgrade before we have to spend a lot of money on fixes where we can do that. We also have carrying over from this year, replacing the motor, rebuilding the pump, and installing a variable frequency drive at the POS booster station. That project was approved and the purchase order went through 2022's calendar year. They've run into some issues acquiring some of the materials for the pump rebuild, and so that's been delaying it. So the likelihood is that this project will not be completed and invoiced by the end of the calendar year. So it's going to carry into 2023. Additionally, the Beverly Shores Booster Station PLC, the Programmable Logic Controller, this is the computer that can control the pumps and everything. There is a, I believe it's either an input or an output card that they cannot get. The contractor has tried multiple options. They've tried bringing in equipment that they thought might tie into this system, and it just isn't happening. And this is again one of those product delays that we're facing out with all of our material and equipment. So that they've already billed us for part of the project, but the balance of the project is carrying over to this year, which is the $13,000. And then you'll see under distribution, I have the lead service line replacement project materials and labor. We have basically $1,035,000 for this year and for next year. And that'll be coming out of our improvement fund. And that is the bulk of the increase from 2022 to 2023's capital plan. Last year's capital plan was just a little over $1 million, and this year's is a little over $2 million. There's also some money set aside for an extension for the area that was annexed in 2022 on US 20 by Johnson Road, between Sharps and Johnson Road. But I do not know that we will actually have to spend anything on that. they're looking at some grant possibilities through economic development to maybe help pay for that. So I did put money in there just in case. And then I do have listed a crew truck. One of the we have the 2 crew trucks. We haven't replaced either one of those yet. We did buy this additional crew truck. I do need to replace one of those crew trucks before too long. And last year I had a budget amount of $84,000, and when we were shopping around for the crew truck we bought this year, I realized that $84,000 isn't going to really cut it for next year. So I have $90,000 in the plan for next year. And then there's a service truck listed, and that's a smaller utility truck that we use. And then you see that the mini excavator, the trailer for the excavator are listed, and then the last item listed is a tow behind air compressor. One of the 2 that we have is quite old, and it's basically we have to keep it running. We have to start it at the garage when it's cold out and keep it running as long as we need to use it, because if we try to start it out in the field, it won't start when it's cold. And they've had it looked at, and it's a very old machine, probably in the 25 to 30-year-old range. So we've gotten our money's worth out of it, that's for sure. Needless to say, there are some of these items that are listed in here that if financials don't look right, we can hold off on some of those items. Obviously the lead service line, we're gonna be committed to doing that, and plan to start the hiring process here probably next week to get moving on that, so that we can get people started early in the year, get them through their training. We can put a crew out of experienced people, and then put the new people on other crews so they can gain experience. So it's not going to hold us up on starting the project. It's just we have to shift people around to make sure they get trained. I do have to say that some of the revenue decrease from last year to this year, or from 22 to 23, is also the that utility receipts tax that we had to get our rates adjusted because of the repeal. We were bringing in revenue from that, so it did count as revenue towards us, but we also have eliminated the expense. So in that sense, it's a wash, but it does decrease our anticipated revenue. So that's pretty much everything that I have in the business plan. Obviously, you just received it tonight, so that would be at your discretion whether you want to move forward with approving it, or if you want to digest it. We do have another meeting at the end of the month. So,
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. You can take it home and let us take a look at it.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it at the next meeting.
that's good. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
It's all right with me.
That'd be good.
All right. So that's everything I have with regard to the business plan.
Do a question.
Yeah.
When could we expect the 94 projects to complete itself? And then we would receive revenues from that expense.
We actually have, there's actually properties along 900 that we could probably get tied in if they want to tie in soon. We're working on doing some of the taps, but the county made the decision that they were going to pay for all those taps, for all those people. well, they paid the contractor, but the contractor doesn't do the taps. So the contractor's supposed to forward that money to us. We haven't gotten it yet, so, so it's not a hot priority for us to go out and do our taps because we want money. Plus, they originally wanted us to hurry up and do taps because they thought about paving that road, but they ran out of time this year to pave that road, so, we'll work on it through the winter, and then when paving, we'll follow those by the time paving opens up. That's part of the reason why the county paid for those, is so that road can get paved without being damaged by us coming back in to do taps. The water main, they've made it down, all the way down 900 to 350, or 300, 950 to 300, sorry. All the way down 950 to 300, and now they're traveling down 300. They've already laid some of the main on 300 where they had to go underneath the creek and where they had to go under the pipeline for the gas pipelines. So it's just basically a matter of them moving along and installing it. My understanding is that they have received the balance of their pipe. So that means that they can continue working on it and get it installed, and then we're following along and monitoring pressure testing, and then we pull samples to make sure it's safe. And then at that point, we'll look at tying customers over.
Excellent.
Do you know how much that tap fee is?
I'm not 100% certain what they paid. So I have to look at that, but I believe they based it off of what our estimate, what we told them tap fees were valued at. So.
Do all those residences want to tap in? Do we know that? Or?
Some do and some don't. And I knew that was going to be the case when it came to the residential folks. I mean, it all depends on how good water they have coming out of their well, whether they're going to want to tie on to us or not. The folks along 300 all gave easements to the county, so the water main is not in the right of way, it's in an easement. And anybody that gave an easement, as is typical, we then also gave, in exchange for the easement and whatever dollar amount the county agreed to pay them for the easement, they're getting a service tab. They don't have to, basically we just make record of it, and we don't have to do it until they say that they're ready for water. So we're not gonna invest the money on those taps until they're ready for water.
Okay.
And then we've got the commercial entities as you get down the road. So once those get tied on, then we'll have some decent revenue from those.
All right. Any old business?
Yeah, under old business, the town of Pines, I got word Monday that the town of Pines did approve to pay for that water main extension on Pine and Poplar Streets. So I'm sending an invoice to their clerk treasurer so she can cut the check, and once we have the check, we will get all the formal quotes for the material from our vendors, the formal quotes. And then I warned them that if those quotes came in higher than my estimates, I would let them know so they could decide if they're going to appropriate additional funds before we order the materials.
Okay.
So since it's municipality, I know that they'd have to do that through legislative action. So one of the things we've been struggling with is to get a pressure test to pass the water main along over in Beverly Shores for the one that we installed for the National Park Service. I think it's air. This is a very typical issue, especially when you have elevation changes, and this main does have a significant elevation change. We do have an air relief on it, but you have to get almost all the air out of the main before you can get through a pressure test effectively, because air, what'll happen is the water doesn't compress, but the air does. And so once you disconnect your pump that you build the pressure with, it starts dropping off. And that air actually, once it's compressed, can actually blow out gaskets and it can cause leaks. So we have to be very careful with that. But we've been struggling with it. We're still working on it, but we're hoping to be finished soon. I'm anticipating receiving our the final details of our hydraulic modeling. We've gone back and forth with Wessler a lot on this, provided a lot of information. They've done some calibration checks based on the information we've given them for fire flow information, and I think we're really close. So once we have that, then they'll invoice us for the balance of that. I believe it's pretty much done at this point. And then just to bring up last week, myself, Dave, Paul, Tim Krichinsky, Beth, and Davis attended the Water Institute in French Lick. I think it was a pretty good program. I hope that you guys got a lot out of what you went to for that program. The section meeting will be in April 10th through 14th. Obviously, I'll bring this up later to see if anybody's interested in attending that when we get closer to it.
Is that in Indianapolis?
That one's in Indianapolis, yes.
I'd like to mention that the AWWA meeting we went to was mostly designed for board members.
Yeah, they had a track that had a lot of information geared towards boards and other elected officials for some communities and stuff. The Water Institute's a little bit different than the section meeting. Usually the section meeting is almost entirely geared towards operators, but there's still good information to learn there about why we're doing what we're doing, and it's good for you guys to see what we're going to be coming up against in the future. So that's all I have for old business.
All right, new business.
I don't have anything for new business.
Okay. Any public comment? Director's comments. On behalf of the board and myself personally, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family of John Doyle. I mean, he was an institution in this town and a very integral part of our operation here and our construction projects. He was just a good guy. And I don't know how else to put it. So he will be missed, and again, I'd like to extend all our condolences to the Doyle family. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn the Tuesday, December 13th meeting of the Mission City Water Board.
I'll second it.
Let's say we adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.